Got on my leather jacket Thriller. The show ain't nothing iller. Man, I'm a lady killer. If I want her, I'ma steal her. I promise I can make her fly away like caterpillars. So if you don't know by now, then you should probably get familiar.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome to Ask the Expert. We're here today with our guest, Bernadette Semple. And ladies and gentlemen, you are going to love this guest. Bernadette and I met on Facebook, and I've been so impressed with who she is and what she has done in her life. And I know that you're going to be too. I'm going to ask you all to bear with us a little bit. We have a different setup today. But Bernadette and I are both have experiencing the Monday blues technical failures, but we've made it work because we're both women who will never give up. And you're going to know that more about Bernadette right now when I tell you about her. She is the CEO of Semple Fidelis Group, which is a group that it's a conglomerate, right, Bernadette? It's
Yes.
your entertainment, cybersecurity, politics. And so she is a force to be reckoned with. We found out just before that we have Staten Island in common, and that I work with some of Bernadette's family here in Staten Island. Bernadette is a retired Navy combat veteran, and she is an expert in cybersecurity, foreign affairs, and politics. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to please welcome Bernadette Semple. Bernadette, thank you for being a guest on our show at Ask the
Oh,
Expert.
thank you so much for having me and waiting for me as well, because I had surgery a couple of weeks ago on my spine. So thank you so much.
Well, we would love to have you, and we want to get right into things because
Absolutely.
so much is going on in the political world right now.
Hmm.
But before we get to, politics and the president and Democrats and Republicans, I wanted you to take a minute and just tell our
Sure.
audience about who you are and your background. Tell us a little bit about, where you are in life.
Okay, so I'm a 17th generation American. I'm a third generation New Yorker. My mother was born in Brooklyn, my father in Staten Island. They met, as teenagers, fell in love. My dad went in the army. My mother became a nurse. They went to live in Germany overseas for a number of years. He came back and retired, and we settled in Astoria, New York, and sent all 10 of their kids to Catholic school. We went to Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And then I did something very different from the rest of my family. I went to a public school. I had my little brother tell me, "You're not Catholic anymore. You're public." You know, yeah. So I went to August Martin High School, which is a great high school. Learned a lot. Went on to ran track there, and went on to College of the Holy Cross. Always was going to become an attorney, and always wanted to get into politics, and decided to go into the military to, at the time, I thought, to further my political career down the road, and wind up staying there for 22 years. They realized I love to learn, and they sent me to school after school and invested a lot of money in me. And I retired as a commander after I had gotten injured in combat. But it was a great, great career. I really enjoyed it.
So tell us a little bit about what it was like being a woman, leader in the Navy as a woman, as a Black woman. Were you, did the men accept your authority?
Yeah, they did. It was really funny because I say I never really experienced. I think my parents protect this. I never really experienced racism or even heard of racism or sexism until I got in the Navy, and then people started talking about. It. I was like, what? What do you mean women can't do this, that, and the other? It was just so foreign to me. And so, when I got there, because I used to run track, I could run faster than they could, all the guys. I could swim better than they could. Physically, I was better than a lot of the guys. And then as we, went on to our first tour, I went to DC. That was the big difference because at the time they didn't want women on ships technically. And so we had to go to shore commands where the men went to sea, either it be a submarine or a ship or go to fly planes. And so, that was a big deal, but that changed rather quickly. And within 2 or 3 years, they were asking people to go, They even asked me to go and become a pilot. But at the time, being in New York, I didn't even know how to drive. So I was like, what do I want to go fly planes for? I don't like roller coasters. What do I want to do that for? Had I known it would be so much fun driving, I probably would have gone on to be a pilot. But I didn't do that. And then I got into what was called communications at the time. And then it evolved to command and control and communication. And then it evolved again to command, control, communications, and intelligence. And then it became C4, and then became C4I. And then that led me to getting into computers because, computers were coming online. And, the military had the internet way before the public had the internet. We were dealing with the internet.
Yeah.
And then, so I was totally into that field. And then it became really a combat type of field because by the 90s, and Secretary Rumsfeld, it had to take an older guy to realize it. He was like, wait a minute, we have all these disparate systems that are not connected and they're going to be connected, and we don't have the security system. We need to start training our officers to be able to manage these systems. And at the time, I was a military assistant at the Assistant Secretary of Defense, Assistant for C3I, which is Command, Control, Computers, and Intelligence. So I got picked to go to this scholarship program for information assurance and got my master's degree in information assurance, cybersecurity. But I also had a master's degree early in national security affairs, strategic planning, and international negotiations, where I wrote my thesis on the China-Africa relations, implications for U.S. foreign policy. So I enjoyed my time. And I tell people, and it's very hard for them to believe, I was never sexually harassed in the Navy. I was never sexually assaulted in the Navy. But do I know people who were? Absolutely. So when I was in combat, one of the first things my senior chief, one of the foreign senior chiefs, we were like 2,700 men on our base and 100 women, 112 women. And my senior master chief and I went to the admiral. We said, look, we need to get in front of this really early. We'd like to take all the women in the base, give them a secure place to come talk to us and tell us any of the issues they're having, whether it's, dealing with men, but also, what do they need? Do they need, stuff for their periods? Are they having problems female wise? What can we do to make their stay for this year much easier? And we did that, and we didn't have really any problems on the base because the women knew that if there was an issue, especially with sexual assault, I would take action on it. So I always protected my people. But I also had a lot of men who molded me early in my career, and my chiefs, because the chief is supposed to mold the young officers in their career. And I had some wonderful men who really molded me, and I was like a fighter from New York. And I remember my Chief Dotson saying, ma'am, you can't fight everything. You can't fight everything. They just, we'll tell you what to say. We'll tell you what, they're going to say this, you say that. Taught me how to brief, taught me how to go in the briefings with the skipper. And so I had a great career, great career and great people. So I had a great time.
So, it's for me, I always, so first of all, appreciative for you for taking that risk and for getting into the Navy and for serving on behalf of our country. I mean, that is must have been an extraordinary thought process that you went through before entering into the military. And we're joined by Lucille Chavone, who is one of our fan favorites here, and she says welcome. And from my other fan favorite, my mother, Josephine Nastasi, who says, Bernadette, thank you for your service. And we all thank you for your service, Bernadette. But tell us, I mean, were you worried going in, or did you just know that you wanted to do this? I mean, were you worried about war breaking out?
My mother tried to get me to go to the Naval Academy or one of the academies so fast, and wanted to try to get me to go to. So, since my family's been in this country before the civil, 1400s, 1500s, we have served in every single war. So it's a duty for my family. We have served in my grandfather, World War I, World War II, Korea. Some of my mother's cousins got multiple Purple Hearts. So that's just something we do. That's just something we do. It's expected. And so, no, but as a woman, I'm the highest ranking woman in my family by far. so
That's
far.
fantastic.
So that's a great
Yeah.
thing. And one of the things I wanted to tell you is also is like before they let women on ships, because I could see, I've always had this ability to see beyond what's there, and I think I attribute that to my Jesuit training. Communications, they didn't have anyone to fix what they call these. We had a communication issue on the ships. They had no one to fix them but me. I was the best. I was the expert. And they had to send me on that ship. And I was on that ship for 6 weeks. I was the only woman on the ship. And they had to cordon off an entire area. And I was in the wardroom with the guys. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot, and they treated me. I just didn't have any issues during that time. But I'm not saying
Do
that
you
other people don't.
No, and of course we know that there are people that do have issues, but I wonder if you think that the reason that you didn't have issues was because of the way you carried yourself with the confidence that you have and the relationships that you developed. And I mean, do you attribute that, your
Absolutely.
it, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely, and
and
I
I
think
think that
part of it's coming to New York, and I got what people call is the bitch face, right? I
yeah,
almost
yeah,
look
yeah,
like don't approach her, I just and then they find out, she's really nice and she's really funny, but just looking at me, they're just like, yeah, that one you probably don't want to mess with. And I
yeah,
just
yeah.
had that sort of that reputation when I remember I had to do an investigation during when I was in Africa, and there was these colonels, and they saw me coming, and I told my boss, I said, you don't want me to do this investigation? Yeah, I do. I said, you no, you really don't. And he goes, yeah, I do. And I start digging, and I never start. I had one admiral say, you know what, when you get onto something, you're like a rabid dog, you don't let go, and you will go under, over, and around to get the answer. And so I had these colonels, male turtles. They saw me coming. They ran from me and ran behind the gate and shut the gate. It was hilarious. It was so hilarious. So yeah, so I mean, I was treated with respect. I treated them with respect, and just try to keep myself out of bad situations. And it helped that I come from a family of military officers, because I had my dad to always talk to, and I had great mentors. I worked for General Powell. I just worked for some of the highest ranking people in the military, and got to see how people make decisions, and how tough it is to make decisions. So when it came for me to be a skipper, I was ready.
So now you're retired combat veteran. So
Yes.
we talked a little bit about you having had spine surgery. So can you tell us? I mean, what conflict were you involved in, or how did you get injured?
So I was in, of course, the Iraqi War, Operation Enduring Freedom, and I was in Africa. Africa was the base, is the base. It's still there, Djibouti. Um, when they were driving them out of Iraq, the terrorists were running into, Somalia's right next door, and you probably don't know. Somalia's right next door. They were running into Somalia, and everybody knows that. Also, Osama bin Laden was trained in Somalia, so we had a lot of terrorist activity, and they were trying to run back in to Somalia via Djibouti, and we would catch them there. And that's where we
Okay.
held a lot of them. So they were coming in there, and we were catching them there. So it was pretty interesting.
So that's intense. I mean, that's like
Very
really
intense.
intense. It's
Very
not that
intense.
there's any war that's not intense or any action that's not intense, but that was a very intense situation, and your service there, obviously set the path for well, what happened with 9/11, right?
Hmm.
Is unfortunate, but ultimately Osama bin Laden was killed, and
Right, right, and I was actually in the building. As I said, I was the military assistant to the intelligence guy, and I was in the building when we got hit. In fact, my boss was out of town that day, and I went upstairs. I was like, "Oh, I got a day off," because he was like, "This was the smartest man I ever worked for in my life." His name was Linton Wells, brilliant, and I mean, I had to catch up with him, intellectually. And he was out of town that day, and I was like, yes, yes, I got a day off. And I went upstairs to see some of my Navy friends, some Navy captains, and the door was closed. And I was like, well, who's in there? They're like, oh, Captain. I was, okay, I know who he is. And I went in there, and I saw the Trade Center on fire.
yeah,
And I was like, oh my God, the World Trade Center is on fire. They're like, yeah, they say a little plane hit it. I'm like, no, 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 that's a terrorist attack, because you're not allowed. Being from New York, I knew you cannot fly over Manhattan
right.
after we had those bombs. I knew it. And then next thing you know, here comes the second one. And talk about my faith, it was God. I was like, I got to go downstairs. I could have made the phone call right there, but something told me go downstairs. I got to go downstairs and call my family and see if they're okay, because I had friends and family working on Wall Street. And so when I came out into the third quarter, I was in 4D 554. I remember this distinctly. I stopped because the E ring is the outer ring, so I was in the D ring, and something said stop, and my office was in 3E 192, and something told me go towards the A ring to get back to the first ring, and the plane that hit the Pentagon hit between 4 and 5.
Oh my God.
And so some of my cousins that worked in the Pentagon were telling family that they thought I was dead because they didn't hear from me and all kind of craziness. And I remember finally calling home that night, being able to call home that night, and just my family just crying. And I was like, okay, I got to go. I had a skirt on. I had to come and put on my pants and go back to work. I had to go back to work. I was one of the few that was essential personnel and had to work through and I said, I can't believe I'm working in a burning building.
That must have been terrifying. It is. I know that I worked in Battery Park City at the time, and that day I just happened, because of politics, I happened to not be there. But you know, the terror, the destruction, and what ensued in the days after, in the Lower Manhattan area, was for me was so. I don't even know the words to use. It was as if I was in another world, as if I was in a third world country,
Surreal.
because the blown out buildings, the burning mound, the smell in the air was just something I'll never forget. I can't even imagine how you must have felt, knowing that you had to keep your head about you, and that you were one of the few that understood security and cybersecurity, and you had to keep on working. And my hat's off to you, because I know that in our buildings there were some retired military that actually they fell apart, because they saw their hometown on fire,
Right.
yeah, so it was disturbing for so many people, not only because of the loss of life, but to really feel that we could get hit on our own soil.
Well, I was really concerned for myself because I was actually calm. Like I said, I had a skirt on. I actually went in my office, got my people out, told them to go. I had to go in my boss's office, get all the classified material and lock it up, because that's procedures. You can't leave any classified material out. Turn off the
Yeah.
computers, disconnect everything, and got them out. And I went back to get my purse. And then later on, I was like, something's wrong with you, because I was absolutely calm. I mean, I couldn't believe how calm I was. And then,
Yeah.
when I finally got to my house, which is about 5 minutes away on Capitol Hill, my neighbors came out, and one of the next door neighbors was like, "Oh my God, I was never so happy to see you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go change." And then my boss called me, and I met him back at the Pentagon. But I was absolutely, I could not believe. I thought it was, and then I talked to a doctor about it later, and he says I have what they call a parasympathetic nervous system, where under extreme stress, I'm the calmest.
And it's just amazing. But it's amazing to hear. But I don't. I think that I knew that about you coming in, because your successes, are just, they're so fantastic that, you have to have that kind of drive and desire and focus to be able to shift from one place to another, from your education to the military, and then
Hmm.
to politics, and this great company that you've created. I mean,
Hmm.
you're clearly a force to be reckoned with. I see that in your actions on Facebook. I see it, in your actions on social media, and it's, even just us chatting. So, but we're already 20 minutes in, and I feel like you just
Okay.
got on, and I want to make
I know, right?
sure that everybody gets to hear more about the things that you are so expert in now. So talk to me about the China Africa connection in the thesis you wrote, because it's fascinating to hear that there is connection. So why don't you tell our audience about that?
Sure. Well, the first thing is it's being sold on Amazon now, which I don't understand because the government supposedly owns it. It's been sold on Amazon for $900. So I guess a lot of
Wow.
people are reading it. So I wrote it. I was in Naval Postgraduate School after I came out of Guam. I was my second tour out of Guam, being an admiral's aide, and a friend of mine from college wanted to introduce. She was in China, and she wanted to introduce me to some African guy who was going to be coming to the United States. And I was like, Africans in China? She says, oh, yeah, there's a ton of them here. And I was like, what? And I said, what is that all about? And so I went to one of my thesis advisors, Claude Buss, who's passed on, one of the Chinese experts for the country, and talked to him about it. And he said, yeah, let's do it. And then I had to get another thesis advisor who was an African expert. And so what we found was that, you know, China, when we look at China, we look at it as a country that wants to absolutely be a leader. But it's not the kind of leadership that everyone thinks. They're not trying to be a leader in the first world. They want to be the leader of the third world. And I wrote this in 1993. And they were going to be taking over all of the third world countries. And now here we are to push them forward to be able to be number one in the 21st century. And here we are in the 21st century, and China owns most of Africa. And what they've done is they give them these loans, right? They give them these loans that they can't possibly pay back. And then
Right.
what they also do, and that's one of the reasons why I took that tour in Africa, because I wanted to see if my thesis was true as well. Being in an Ethiopian airport, you could see 200 a day. China's been importing 200 people a day into Africa. And they'll build these soccer stadiums and they'll build the roads, but they won't let the African people work on those projects. So they import, not only they, you know, importing their way of life, they're importing their people. And from what I'm reading, they're talking about having 200 million Chinese on the African continent by the end of this century. And then so
It's,
they're in Haiti, they're in
yeah.
Jamaica, they're buying up all of that. They're in South America, they're everyone. So what happens if they take over all the resources? Then we're not United States, but the rest of the country, like Europe, and they're dead in the water because they don't have any natural
Well,
resources.
but Bernadette, they were doing it here in New York. I mean,
Right.
EB-5 was that big hiring policy
That's
where
right.
we would have Chinese investors, and one of the projects that they were investing in was the New York Wheel that was supposed to be built on the Staten Island waterfront,
Mm-hmm.
and that was something that Michael Bloomberg was involved in,
Mm-hmm.
and I was amazed when I heard about how many investment strategies the Chinese had in New York City. And at one point in time in Manhattan, there were so many Chinese business people or just
Mm-hmm.
laymen purchasing property in Manhattan that the price of property was skyrocketing.
That's
And
right.
so a lot of New Yorkers were moving to, and this wasn't long ago, Bernadette, you were here,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and New Yorker, Manhattanites were starting to move to Brooklyn because they were
Right.
getting such top dollar for, but how is it that none of us put this together until COVID? Until Donald Trump said, "Hey, watch what's happening here with China."
I don't
2016.
even I can't even say that people have even begun to put it together since COVID. I mean, I think the president gets it. He's always gotten it about the threat that China has to us. They're our greatest threat. But I don't think the United States, even with COVID-19, which I was watching since December, and I might even think that same friend who told me about the Africans in China came to visit, and I was hanging out with her in Martha's Vineyard, and I came home and I got very sick. I never got sick. I mean, I was sick as a dog. And this was like early September, throwing up, diarrhea, the whole shebang bang. Went into New York hospital. There was like 15 other people with the most excruciating stomach pains you've ever had in your life, right? And so
Okay.
here we go 3 months later, and you have it. And so one of the things I've always learned from my thesis is to read foreign newspapers. If you really want to know what's going on in the United States, read the foreign newspapers. They'll have a three or four. I remember Katrina. The things that I was seeing, I was in Helsinki business then. the things that I was seeing in Europe was not the things that were being reported in the United States. So just a little tip. You want to know what's going on in your country, read foreign newspapers. So you read foreign newspapers. And I was watching people falling out in the street in Wuhan, people being, you know, I don't even know, you could like, they just locked them in their apartments, locked them in their apartments.
Yeah.
People, they had some kind of device. I mean, their technology is like off the chain. They would
Yeah.
have people waiting on a corner, and someone would drive by, and they'd have these devices to know someone had a temperature, and they'd pull them out the car. And then they'd pull them out the car, and they'd stick them with something, and they would just snatch them up, throw them in the back of a van. It was just unbelievable what was going. And you had to know. And then next thing you know, you're watching this, and then the president closed the borders. And I had said something on my Facebook, January 23rd. If you go back and look, I had seen these. I said they're not taking this serious, because I was going to Washington on the train 5 o'clock in the morning, and there was a ton of people coming in from China with masks on, because the airport, air train, blah blah blah.
Right.
And I was just like, they are not taking this thing seriously. This is serious. And then our mayor and our governor were saying the threat is low, the preparation is high, which was a lie. And then
Yeah.
what happens? What they did was they went into, when they couldn't get in the United States when we were closed, they went through Europe. And then, Italy, which I love, was full. And I was like, what is the connection between Italy and China? And I did a little research, and they had gone through Italy to try to get into this country. And then that's when we had this, shut down from Europe as well. And Italy took it. I mean, their death rate was just unbelievable. No, the world wasn't prepared for this. But then who's prepared for a pandemic, right? So our last
Nobody.
big pandemic was 1918. And we
Right.
lost what? We lost 50 million worldwide and
Yeah.
795,000 in Europe. And I was listening to some of the old people who survived the pandemic in 1918. It was amazing. And I remember this old woman from Alabama said, we had nothing, no medicine, nothing. We had nothing. And she would just, drop suit. She was like 10 years old. And it just showed how our grandparents and our great grandparents, they were so grown at 10 years old, what they had to go
Oh, yeah.
through and how they had to help their parents. And it was just unbelievable, and what we had to go through. So this COVID thing is serious. I mean, everybody has their theory. I don't think it's a natural occurring virus myself, but that's my opinion only.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see. We'll have to
Well,
talk offline what I really think.
yeah. Well,
Mhm.
Florence Cosmai says that you have an amazing story, and she had no idea. I think she's referring to the Africans in China.
Mhm.
And she says, thank you for the education. And the whole discussion is a little bit frightening with the COVID and what happened, what you saw in DC. My mom, who is, the critic, says, "What a
Mhm.
great guest you are! So informative." That's just being said.
Thank you.
For everybody else watching, please, I forget to say this, my producer always yells, please please share this, and give me some likes here, and invite others to watch along with us. The more you watch, the better our audience grows, and we can then expand from the 2 days a week, maybe into more than 2 days a week.
Mhm.
But I don't want to take away. My mother wants to know, Bernadette, how are you
Yes.
feeling from the surgery?
Much better. I had my 12-week checkup, and so they say I can start yoga and physical therapy. So I'm looking forward to that, because I've been an athlete. I think being an athlete is what carried me through this surgery, being able to knowing how to rehab. But
Yeah.
it was something. It was something.
Yeah, that's amazing. Bernadette told me offline about the surgery and the fusing, and it's amazing what they can do nowadays. But I
Hmm.
think that we've got about a half an hour left.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about the transition that you made from military and cybersecurity and national security to politics. Now, you were a candidate for an office in Queens, weren't you?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so, as I told you before, that I've always wanted to run for Congress. My first I always went around with my dad with petitions. He was at the Battle Palliate, Democratic Club. Was friends with good friends with Mario Cuomo. My aunt in Staten Island is best friends with Guy Molinari. You know, just politics in our blood. So I always wanted to, and I wanted to come in and really represent my district that I grew up in. And the Democrats seemed friendly at the time. And being in the military, you kind of get, you really don't know what politics is about because you're apolitical. You really are apolitical. So
Yeah.
you don't think about Democrat, Republican. You think about your country first. That's it. And so when I got to Queens, they said, yeah, you can run. But then they went after me. When I raised too much money, they actually got a guy to put like false petitions in my thing, and I knew it. They wanted me to use a certain what do they call it? These consultants.
Right.
None of the petitions were good, but you know, my military way, I had already had another team getting a petition, so I had enough petitions to get on the ballot, and I got on the ballot. Well, who knew? Because this is the United States of America. I'm a combat veteran, right? No,
Yeah.
they went to Queens. A certain guy who got removed by AOC, Crowley, went to Queens, picked his own judge, who was not the election judge that was there, and they pushed me off the ballot. But that's one thing. So I had the number one, supposedly had the number one election attorney, because I'm a preparer. He was no good, and then he would not represent me in an appeal. I had to call down to Washington, D.C., and get my attorney out of Washington, call up here to get somebody to represent me. Once you're a Democrat in this city, if they don't want you to run, you won't run, and you can't get an attorney to represent you on any level.
That's right. That's right. It's not just a Democrat. Even Republicans
too, right? I'm sure.
But that's what the Tammany Hall kind of mentality is that, you know, what's happened, Bernadette, is especially in New York, is that the machines carry and make the decision for the people, for the populace. And
it's elected, not elected.
That's right. You know, they anoint people, they're handing down seats, they're playing musical chairs and deciding, who can get what seats. And then, as you well know, right, we adopted term limits here in New York City, and the populace absolutely overwhelmingly voted for it. And then, Bloomberg showed us that if you want to,
right.
if you want to tell the populace F you can do that too and get yourself another term. So it really, I know it's so interesting how, we try and do this transparency in government, and we have the matching funds program for city government. We have these term limits. We have all these things, but at the end of the day, if a candidate is not prepared with a proper election lawyer, with a group that can carry their petitions, they're not going to get on the ballot. And
that's right.
What's
ballot access.
Ballot access. And I hear so often, people saying, disenfranchising voters, and that people are disenfranchising voters in certain areas. And I'm not saying that it's not true, because in New York, the disenfranchised voter tends to be the Republicans. Like if you're a Republican and you try and vote in Bronx, it's like, well, who the heck are you? But, we talk about disenfranchising voters at the ballot box, but we see that there's disenfranchisement and access to the ballot.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And Governor Cuomo and our state legislature can actually change that in New York. I mean, just for our viewing audience, every state makes its own election rules. So they're different from state to state, which is why the president has been discussing this mail-in ballot and the potential for voter fraud. But just to go over it quickly, in New York, if you cast your vote by paper, whether it's an affidavit ballot, whether it is a ballot for absentee, or even a military ballot.
That's right.
They only count those after they count the machine votes. And if there's a wide enough margin, they don't bother to count the paper until later on.
There you go.
And then if it's too close of a margin, you can challenge those ballots. And you can challenge them on a wealth of reasons, from anything from the signature doesn't match to you
Mm-hmm.
colored outside the circle, the outer envelope. And that's the case in many states that you can challenge paper.
That's
And
right.
we saw, and Bernadette, you remember it, we saw
Yes, I
in
do.
2000 what happened with George W. Bush and that election with the hanging Chad.
That's right.
Florida had to do a recount, and we didn't know until December who the president was going who
That's
won the
right. That's
election.
right.
Now,
Yep.
could you imagine what will happen if all 50 states are challenged? At the end, and which one's not going to do it? Biden or Trump is not going to get the lawyer and challenge in all 50 states. Both of them are
They
going to
both
challenge.
are. They both are. Because there you go. And it's really interesting because I saw something, and I'm trying to find it, and I have to do a little more research. But apparently, after that Gore Bush debacle, apparently you have to have everything done by November 10th, so the electors can vote for December 10th. And so there's
Yeah,
something in hard place. So there's no way they can do paper ballot. Further, you don't have the people who can count them. How, this kind of thing you would have to start working on years before. Who's going to count all these paper ballots? I was
yeah,
in the BOE one day, and I'm sure I will get a call later. And I saw a woman walk in, pick up maybe 500 ballots to take to nursing homes.
yeah.
And then one woman, when I was getting petitioned, she said, "Oh, I already signed someone." I said, "Well, who'd you sign?" She goes, "I don't know. It's the big guy. They just came and told me to sign for the big guy."
Yeah, yeah.
And that kind of thing goes on all the time. He's absolutely right. But, in talking about the president, he was the reason after that thing with that I went through with the Democrats. I left the party. They didn't want me to. They made me wait an entire year to change my registration. And I said, fine,
Wow.
I'll wait. And then I was asked by the president to run his Queens, be a leader for the Queens primary. And I said yes because I just didn't understand why they didn't like him because everybody loved Donald Trump. I loved him because he fixed my ice skating rink when I was little.
That's
Remember?
right.
Remember, it was like so wet. So that's my thing with Donald Trump, the president. And then I was in church, and I was talking to Newt Gingrich, and he said they don't like him because he's a threat. He's not part of the club. Well, those were the very same words they said about me, and I said I
That's right.
had to help him. He's from Queens. I'm from Queens. We look stupid as Republicans. He's a native New Yorker. If we don't support him, we have to support him,
That's right.
and we
That's
did,
right.
and we won,
So what
and we
was that
won.
like? Yeah, well, tell the audience, what was it like now being an African American from New York, being a Republican and supporting Donald Trump? Were you welcomed with open arms by those that were on the campaign team? What was it like for you? And a
Oh yeah,
woman to
because
be.
yeah, well, in the beginning, I would say up until like this time 4 years ago, there weren't many of us. He had a small cadre, and it wasn't that many of us. And it wasn't until so it was easy, it was small, oh, show up here, show up there. Every speech he had, I was there, and I was up like major close. And then it didn't really dawn on me to that he was going to win until we were at the convention. And the people from Texas tore Ted Cruz apart. And the people
Yeah,
from Florida tore Rubio. I mean, they were screaming, endorse him, endorse him. I said, this is big. And then when he gave his speech, it was a great speech. And then he started, he goes, we will be great again. We will be whatever. And then he said, we will make America. And he just said, and the whole place just screamed, great again. And I had never seen anything like that. And I knew this was a movement. And then the rallies just start getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the night before the election, I was in DC before I went up to New York. A friend of mine was like, the president's going to be coming. Well, he's going to be
yeah,
coming to Virginia. He's supposed to be there at 7 o'clock. And she said, "Burn, yeah, I know you're always late. You better come on now because it's going to be." I'm like, I'm just not going to go. He didn't get there till 12 o'clock. But then my friend told me, she said that she had to park like 2 miles away, and she was on the campaign. and she actually picked up Laura Ingraham. That's how big it was when Laura Ingraham from CNN, I mean from Fox, was walking to try to get to the place, to the venue.
Wow.
It was just you. And I think people just didn't see. And it were black people, white people. The Republican Party has really become the Big Ten, whether they want to recognize it or not. We have gay people, we have black people, we have Latino people, they're Americans. They care about America. And it's funny that you said it because I don't get any beat back on Facebook as well either.
Well, so what do you think when Joe Biden says, if you don't vote for me, you're black, you ain't black? I mean, well, you give me your reaction.
Well, first of all, I don't even really care because I'm not a Democrat anymore. And second of all, Joe Biden has the most horrific reputation on race in the United States of America. One of the things that people don't understand, when Kamala Harris was beating him up during the debates about these two senators who were segregationists that were mentors to him, she failed to mention that they were Democrats. They
Yeah.
were Republicans. They were Democrats.
Yeah.
George Wallace was a Democrat. Bull Connor, that Petrie Bridge when everybody was out there and they got beat down? Those were Democrats that did that. Those weren't Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Republicans, my family came out of Republicans. Lincoln was a Republican. And they'll say, oh, the party switched. Well, tell me that 50 years and the Black American people have not gotten a dish. Just show me one positive bill that the Democrats have put forward to help the American descendants of slaves in this country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me one.
Yeah.
I can give you 10 different things that President Trump has done. That not
Go
only
ahead.
not only for African Americans, but for all people. People just want to work. They don't understand Americans. People just want to work and be happy. Really what Americans want to do? They want to go to work. They want to have a family. They want to be able to take a vacation and mind their business, enjoy life. That's it. That's it. It's not that hard. But when you interrupt that, now you have a problem. They don't care about all this stuff. They don't care about the guy next door is gay. They don't care about they really don't. They don't care about the guy next door to them is Mexican. They're Americans. They want to put their flags out. They want to celebrate the 4th of July. That's what they want to do. That's my experience.
Well, I could tell you that, on Saturday, I was part of a rally. Scott Lebedo hosted it. And Scott Lebedo, for those of you who don't know, he calls himself the Patriot Artist for a good reason. He is one of the few Republican artists that there are, conservative artists that there are out there today. And he's an avid Donald Trump supporter, and he has been ostracized in the art world because he's a conservative. And we were at a rally on Saturday, and there were over 2,000 people there. It was in Manhattan, outside City Hall Park, and we posted some pictures to Facebook, and it was amazing to me that people immediately replied that they didn't see any people of color in the audience, which was absolutely untrue, because if you take a look at any of the pictures in the New York Post or on the Facebook pages, there was a rainbow of color. And there were gays for Trump who showed up because they were patriot. There were African American, but Bernadette, children, when I call them children because I'm old, I'm 57, they were kids. They were 17, 18, 20 years old. And at first I wasn't sure, because I had volunteers, and I said, listen, if there are going to be counter protesters here, they're probably going to be white kids dressed in black hoodies, and you're going to have to let them through the gate, let everybody in, and if we have a problem, then we have security here. So there were young people, young kids, Hispanic, black, white, and they were dressed in dark colors. And I was for sure these kids might be, here to counter protest. Bernadette, they were all Trump supporters. It was amazing to me that these young kids were carrying flags, had hats on that said Trump, had T-shirts on under their hoodies that said Trump. And I felt like I was living in an alternate universe, because when I put on CNN, CNN tells me that the younger generation are all going to vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and that they hate Donald Trump. CNN tells me that Donald Trump is doing terrible things to women and to African Americans and to gays. And CNN tells me he's a xenophobe and he's a racist and that he's a liar and a cheat and that he loves Putin. But the people in the crowd, I can tell you right now, they were young, they were Trump supporters, and it was refreshing for me to see that New Yorkers would come out in that larger group to support what the reason for the rally was not about Trump. I should say that straight out. It was about getting rid of Blasio. But it turned out that the messages were meshed together, and
they always do.
Yeah, it was interesting. So, Jay, to let you get back to speaking, and I'll shut up a little bit.
No, that's really good. But I think they're going to be surprised. I mean, a CNN, 700,000 people watch that show a day. Fox is like through the roof, and they're getting on my nerves with some of the people. But that's a whole nother story we can talk about. The media. But I think they're going to get surprised. I saw a post on Facebook the other day, and it was from a black group, and they said, "Why are so many black people coming home to the Republicans? Why do the black men like Trump?" And because he's a guy, he's a masculine guy. Everybody knows what Biden did, and so I think they're going to be surprised. I think the president's going to get reelected. I think he's smart enough. He's from New York. He knows. This is after what I went to in 2014. I said that New York was the center of gravity from communism, and here we are. I can see it coming because they test out everything here in New York so they can see if it's going to work for the rest of the country.
Yeah. And look, we're still locked in our houses. Our restaurants are still not open. People are going bankrupt. We have this terror of the mask wearing situation. The interesting thing is they're fining people for resisting filling out the forms if they drive over the Goethals Bridge, and they're suspected of coming from somewhere else because they want them to quarantine for 14 days. Yet we have the VMA show going on in Barclays Center, and all of the celebrities are allowed to fly in that same day, go into Barclays Center and be part of the VMA Awards and then leave. So it's this double standard, this is by hypocrisy that the governor and the mayor are perpetrating upon us, that New Yorkers are saying we've had enough and we're not going to do it anymore. Unfortunately, there are so many people living in terror of this virus, and I understand the fear, but I had it. You had it, I had it. We got over it. My family had it. It's less than 1% of the people that have had it have died from it. And these lies that well, I won't say lies. This mixed message that yes, America has had more deaths from COVID than any other country, but per capita we're number 8. But we're humongous compared to other countries. And you know that you've been to other countries. You studied that. That's yeah. But that's the dissemination of disinformation or the bending of the truth, that people just listen to the 6-second soundbite and they don't find out the rest of the story. So let's talk a little bit now about what you think is going to happen tonight at the convention. I mean, you've been on the inside of the campaign. You were at the convention last year. Obviously things are going to be different, but what do you think we're going to see at the convention tonight?
Well, first of all, I wish I was there. I was so looking forward to this convention this year. I'm just so sad that I can't be there. But just before we got on, the president got his nomination, pretty much numbers wise, to be nominated. So tonight we're going to see some great speeches, professional speeches. I think they're going to be focused on America. I don't think they need to necessarily bash Biden. I just think they need to appeal to the people who just want to be Americans and live in America, to want to be free. I think one of the things that Ronald Reagan said in a speech long ago, I was watching it the other day. He said, "This is the last bastion." He said he talked to a man from Cuba, and he said, I thank America because I had somewhere to go. This is it. Where are you going to go?
Yeah.
Where are we going to go? This is
Yeah.
it. This is our home. This is our home. Are we going to? We're getting a taste of what it's going to be like. Is this the way we need to ask ourselves? Is this the way we want to live for the rest of our lives? Is this the way we want our children? I mean, we come on. We grew up. We were drinking it. We were drinking behind each other on the fountains and all kinds of stuff. We're still here.
Yeah, it's still here. It's right. And you know, I think what struck me about the Democrat convention last week was that it was so doom and gloom, but
Mm-hmm.
it matched, in my opinion, the victimization of America that they are espousing. They're, you know, women are victims, gays are victims, blacks are victims, you know, Hispanics are victims. That, you know, it seems like the Democrat Party isn't happy unless they're saying that somebody's a victim. And, you know, and when I think about people who would risk their lives to come here illegally because they would, even if they lived in poverty here,
Right.
it would be
Mm-hmm.
better than the life that they have in China or in Mexico or in Venezuela or in
Right.
you name it. You know which
Right.
countries
Mm-hmm.
are, you know, people are coming here from. You know, how could, well, when the Democrats, when I was listening to the speeches, Bernadette, I felt like I was trapped in an Oliver Twist novel. You know that? Yeah. Thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much. I have another. I mean, it felt, it was so dark, it was so gloomy, and it painted a vision of America that I wouldn't want to live in either. But
Well, they
that's
never
not what
told.
America is like.
They never told
To
us what they were going to do for America. They never told us what's on their platform, what they're going to do for America. All it was a Trump bad fest, bash fest. Okay, if I was a Democrat, I'd be like, okay, tell me something I don't know. Now tell me something. What are you going to do for America? And what you see now this week, a lot of my black friends who are Democrats and some of the celebrities are screaming, what are they going to do for us? I said, hey, that's your issue. You should have asked. You should have had that in writing before the convention. It's too late. They've already got their platform. They gave
that's
you
it.
Kamala Harris. Okay, that's your prize, and that's what you asked for, and that's what you get.
And that in of itself, it to me is hypocrisy, because now Kamala
Mm-hmm.
Harris was a candidate for president of the United States. And all right, she didn't make a good showing. You know, I personally think that she's very smart. I think that you know, she understands the law. I don't agree with her politics, but I think
Right.
that, you know, she's capable of running the nation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's running a socialist nation or a republic, that's two different stories. But I think that she's a strong woman and she's intelligent. How is it that they resurrect Joe Biden, who can't string together a sentence without a teleprompter, and they hopscotch him as a lead candidate, and they relegate the woman to the back of the line? How,
Right.
and then they want to claim that they're the party of women. Now, in my opinion, run who you want to be there. If you're going to put her as second of command in command, you know damn well that he cannot run this country. Why didn't you
Mm-hmm.
put her up front? Why are you hiding that woman behind him? Why are you relegating her to second position? I mean, I'm not wishing it, because honestly, I think that Kamala Harris, a female, you know, I think she'd be a good sparring partner for Donald Trump. You know, much better
I,
than
I
Joe
just I
Biden.
disagree. I disagree because I've seen when people get in her face, she shrinks back. Like Tulsi Gabbard. She didn't have jack to say to Tulsi Gabbard. She couldn't handle Donald Trump. I just don't think so. I think
Yeah,
that I believe, she was born here. We're a product of our mothers as women. We're a product of our mothers. And regardless of the fact that she was born here, she was raised by her mother. Her father's Jamaican, her mother's Indian. When she was 5 years old, from 5 to 18, she was in Canada.
yeah.
She was raised in Canada, and then she came here. She doesn't have that American ethos. She doesn't. And so, I just don't think she would be able to go up against whether she's qualified to run the country? I don't think so. I think the best person, the best female we'll ever get is going to be somebody with a military background or somebody who's been a leader in business, because you have to lead. Who is she led?
Well, I'll give
You
you
have
that, but
you
I
got to
do
be able
think
to
that,
lead.
well, as a candidate though, against, Joe Biden has already had his 47 years of service to this country and shown that he couldn't do anything, and he
He
hasn't
never
done
led.
anything.
He never
Yeah,
led.
he
Where
never
did he
led.
lead?
But for
Where,
the Democrat Party, I think that, being a political consultant, if I was going to shape up a candidate to stand against Donald Trump, if I had a choice between Biden and Harris, I'd have gone with Harris because, first of all, the Democrat Party is leaning far to the left, and you want to claim those
right.
Bernie Sanders people, and
Hmm.
Harris is, far more left than Biden, but
For
also,
sure.
she could string together a sentence.
Hmm.
She's energetic. She cuts a good picture.
Hmm.
She's got a grasp on the politics and on the policies, and she can have that conversation. And she's a woman. And if I'm the party supposedly to put women forward, I'd have put her up front. But once again, I guess what I'm trying to show is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. They
It
didn't
is.
care about her ability. They knew in order to run him, they wanted him to have, somebody who a second that would compliment him, and they wanted a black female, plain and simple, and so
But
she fit the bill. They never gave her due or credit for what she did in her life, and whether you agree with her or not, her politics,
right.
she still got there. She got there.
That's
She
right.
got
That's
herself
right.
there.
That's right.
You know,
That's
so,
right.
and
That's right.
I'm a girl's kind of girl. And so, whether I agree with you, I like your politics or not, I'll always say, you
Hmm.
know what, keep on
That's
going,
right.
and
Yep.
do the best you can. But I just want to interrupt for a minute because one of my Facebook friends is bashing me a little bit. Paula Weiss says the DNC was doom and gloom, question mark, really? That's kind of funny compared to Trump's inaugural speech, widely known as American Carnage, which set the tone for his administration. Maybe we were watching different events. I saw a lot of light, love, and hope in the DNC. And then she corrects me. I said Oliver Twist novel. I meant to say the Oliver Twist story. Yes, you are right, Paula. So what do you have to say to that, Bernadette? Do you think Paula is right, or do you think I'm right
Well,
about the
I think
DNC convention?
I think you're both right. Think your opinions, where you stand depends on where you sit, and I'm going to leave it at that. The Democrats are always going to say it was great. We're always going to say it was bad. But as an American, I've always been it's always been optimism, where we're going to go from here, that we can come together as a group to make things better,
Yeah,
and things are going to get better. And I think the Democrats are going to get surprised. I think they made a mistake. And I think one of the things they need to do in politics is, and they started doing it for a little while, in order to be a good president, you need to be either somebody, a leader in business, but also most of the great presidents that we've had have been governors, because you have to know how to lead. You have to. It's basically having a little country, because our states are so big. You have an army because you have the National Guard. You have cities and states and everything like that. And the most important thing to being successful, you got to know the people. I grew up with people in the government. We grew up from we're 20 years old. So if I were to go back and work for the president's administration next time, some of my friends are going to be 3 and 4 stars, and it's not going to be Admiral so and so. It's going to be, hey Craig, hey so and so. You know what I mean? Because we grew
yeah,
up together, and you can get things
yeah,
done because you know each other, you know each other's rhythm, and you know how, is this person someone I can trust or not? And most of the
yeah,
people in DC have grown up. Like you said, Joe Biden's there 47 years. They
yeah.
grew up together. These guys grew up. And Donald Trump knows them because he gave every single one of them money. Do you remember um, the very first debate? And he was on a stage with 17 people. And he said, I gave everyone on this stage money. And people were aghast. Oh,
Yeah.
just gobsmacked. And they were just like, Well, and I remember it was Megan Kelly goes, well, what does that mean? What does that get you? He goes, when I make a phone call, they pick up.
That's right. That's right.
And that's it.
And I
You
think
got
that's
to know
why we
who's who
see
in the zoo. You got to know who's in the zoo. You got to know who you can trust and who you can't trust.
And I think that why we see a lot of Republicans going over to Biden is because of his time in the Senate and the relationships that they had. And Donald Trump is an outsider. Let's face facts.
That's right.
Donald Trump, nobody wanted him, right? He was
Nope.
the outsider who ran. And I have to be honest, I was a Marco Rubio fan. So I was, first I was with Pataki because he
Sure.
served in his administration. And then I was with, Rubio because I thought that Hispanic, he thought he was smart. But the truth is, I was looking at it from an insider's point of view myself. And then as I started watching Trump get traction, I said, listen, look at this. Now I know Donald Trump and said, I know the president. Does he know me by name? Maybe, but I doubt it because he's met so many new people. But did do some work together. And what I'm trying to say is, around 2015, I said he's representing the people. He's not representing the swamp. He's representing the people.
That's right.
Of course, they didn't use the word swamp, and nobody wanted him. And what he was able to get done in the first 4 years with the China, with forcing China to pay, with building the wall, all of these things. I have to be honest with you, Bernadette. When he was saying this stuff, I was like, oh my God, really?
Exactly right.
You can't do that. Hey, I've been in politics 30 years. You can't talk like that. You got to shut up. This will never work. And then I saw that he was literally a reflection of the people, and mostly through Twitter. And now it's because he didn't take the bullshit. It's because he didn't drink the Kool-Aid, and he still hasn't drank the Kool-Aid, that everybody hates him, but that he's able to get things done. And that to me is remarkable. Jody Wasserman has joined us, and she says she's so torn. Jody, what are you torn about? Between to Biden and Trump. You got to give me a little bit more context. Paula Weiss says Obama was neither governor nor business person. Of course, no, that's true. He was a senator. And Bernadette, wasn't Obama like a handpicked? He was handpicked by the Democrat machine.
Who you said wasn't elect? Who?
Obama. I guess you said.
And that's my point. And that's my point. He was horrible because guess what? He didn't know the people. He had to hire so many people and take so many others' advice. Whereas I could say, if I was president, I could go, could you get General Powell over here? I know who's who. Comey, all those guys I knew them. They used to have to come in to see my boss. They had to come through me. I know them all. And they know me. And that's probably why I'm the only one that didn't get called in. On this Russia thing, they didn't call me.
Yeah. So
and I was a cybersecurity person. They never called me.
So we're seeing how that's unfolding. I know that there's limited amount of things that I know that you're limited in what you are allowed to speak about because of security issues. But have that conversation with us a little bit about how do you think Obama handled the foreign policy and our national security as president? When he sent up the pallets of money to the Middle East, what was that all about?
That was so illegal. How do we put pallets of money and just give it? Why couldn't we wire it? Apparently, we didn't have any connection. Why couldn't we wire it? We put pallets of things. Who took their cut out of that? I'm just saying. Come on, that's ridiculous. I don't think that's ever happened in the history of our nation that we've given people so much money like that.
It's
stunning.
It makes the hair on my arm stand up that everybody knows he did it and nobody's investigated why and where it went and how it was spent. And look, you've been to other countries around the world, and we know that especially in third world countries, we could send over donations and food and all this stuff, but it never gets to the people. Everybody takes it off the top. Why in the world, as you just said, why didn't he wire it? Why was it pallets of cash? What happened to
Yeah.
it? And why aren't we as Americans outraged over it?
Right.
No, instead he comes on TV and makes a great speech, or goes to the congressman's funeral, John Lewis's funeral, and from where he's supposed to be eulogizing him, he talks about
Right.
filibusters, and it was all just why? Because he was black, or because he was a good president? Well,
Right.
I don't think it was because he was a great president. I mean, was he the worst president we ever had? In my opinion, no. But
How
he wasn't the greatest.
How many bills did Obama get passed?
Yeah.
8 years.
Yeah, not many. And people will blame
One. ACA. One. That's outrageous for 8 years of a president. One bill he got passed. And don't tell me that it was because the Republicans wouldn't let him and blah, 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 blah. When he came in, he had the Democrat Congress and the Democrat Senate. He got nothing done. Why? Because they all know each other. He was an outsider too. He was an outsider too. And he's depending on people who he doesn't know telling him something. That's a horrible way to govern. Horrible way to govern.
Well, that's it. I mean, to some extent, Bush W. also, he was an insider, right? But he depended a lot on his team to tell him what to do. And I guess many presidents do. And in my opinion, Donald Trump's really the first president that we've seen in our lifetime that hasn't had to have that guidance, because he's put a team around him that he could trust, not the other way around. And if people don't like it, but he said he was going to drain the swamp, and little by little we're seeing it happen. Now we're seeing
Not in the beginning. He had a lot of people who were just never Trumpers, and they tried to take down his administration. And the fact that he's gotten through it, that's a strong man. I'm telling you, I'd be crawled, as strong as I am, the incomings he took, I'd be crawled up in a ball. You hear me? I wouldn't want to go to work. That's how bad it was. That's how bad it was, just to watch it.
I keep saying that not since Jesus Christ has anybody been so publicly persecuted as this man, because whether it's the media or religious leaders or the political insiders, Democrats, Republicans, you name it, the business community, now pharmaceuticals, he's made an enemy everywhere he's gone. But I guess that's what we asked for, right? That's what Americans asked for. We wanted them to pull back the skin and show us the creepy crawlies that were underneath, and that's not pretty. And he has done that, and now the Democrats are trying to crucify him for that. And that to me is just, the more they push, the more I feel like people are pushing back, because I feel like the regular working man and woman want him to do what he's doing. They want him to push back against the media. They want him to push back against authorities. So, tell me quickly, I know we're way over, but my mom wants to adopt you.
Tell her I would be glad. My mom passed away 20 years. She was way too young. She's been gone for like 20 some odd years. Yeah, she was wonderful. She was a wonderful mom.
My mom says, yeah, she wants to adopt you. And Jody Wasserman, it says she's not sure what party she's going to vote for. Jody, watch the convention, and Bernadette, give your best pitch to Jody Wasserman. What's your advice?
Before I went into the Navy, I started taking classes at Columbia, and my professor was Zbigniew Brzezinski. That's one of the reasons why I went into the Navy, because I said, what's the fastest way to get my clearance, through the military or State Department? Zbigniew Brzezinski was Carter's national security advisor. He's also Mika Brzezinski's father, and he's famous. He said, and he was originally born in Poland, Bernadette, Americans are ahistorical. They remember nothing. Tell her to do her research, do her due diligence. Don't listen to what the mainstream media is telling you. You got a little bit of net. They're trying to shut things down. Go and do her own research and find out for herself. And don't be hysterical. We are. I mean, we barely remember COVID. I mean, we're in the middle of COVID, where we barely remember how bad it was 5 or 6 months ago. And Americans, as Americans, we're ahistorical, and we need not be. We need to read more, and we need to do our due diligence. You know, just like you would buy a car, anything else, do your due diligence. That's all I have to tell her.
Okay, Bernadette Semple. Where can people find you if they want to hire you? How do they get in touch with with the Semple Fellas Group?
Well, they can get me on Facebook or LinkedIn. That's the best place.
Okay, very good. It was such a pleasure having you here today. The time just flew, and I'd love to have you back
I know.
again. All right,
Definitely,
maybe
definitely.
as we
It's
get
a
a
lot
little
of fun.
closer to the election.
Super duper.
Okay.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you,
me.
everybody. Remember, share this, like it, and we'll see you on Friday. Thank
And
you,
do your
Bernadette.
research. Do your due diligence. Don't believe what everybody